So before we get out of here, we want to do a quick explanation of our centralized or CFI, centralized finance system, and tell you some of the differences and why we believe, although the space has moved on to DeFi, why centralized finance it may be very necessary going into the future. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, so we're going to explain what Bitcoin centralized or CFI, centralized finance, is all about and how it works. How is CFI different from DeFi? So ever so often when you hear the term DeFi come up a lot, you'll hear CFI, right? And who's doing CFI? Well, CFI is going to be something like your Binances or exchanges. And many of the reasons why you're doing DeFi in the first place is so you don't have to have CFI. And a lot of people already know how I feel about DeFi and why in the world would I think CFI is a good idea. Well, for the most part, I don't think CFI is a good idea. I think it's a bad idea, but there are certain circumstances where I think CFI may work well and may be necessary. And I think the Bitcoin NYK project may fall in just one of those areas. Very rare, but I think it might fall in one of these areas where that may stand to be correct. So you first have to understand the makeup of the Bitcoin MYK project. What is it? It's a universal bridge cryptocurrency. That's important. It means that there exists a counterpart to Bitcoin MYK on major exchanges or major blockchains where they have interoperability where you can move our cryptocurrency. Sort of like an atomic swap, right? You can move it out of one blockchain to another, right? And we, through a centralized hub, facilitate that. Now, where the centralized finance comes in is when you're dealing with something like universal basic income. What you have is you're going to have a lot of people who are interested in universal basic income but may know very little about cryptocurrency. So you're going to probably have a lot of people who don't know how to navigate, right? So that sets up a situation where a product or service that can aid them in that kind of works. Now, the other thing I feel a lot in my bones is that a lot of decentralized finance products are going to be scammy, right? Or pyramid Ponzi schemes, and that are going to be bad for the space, and people are going to lose a lot of money. People are going to walk away and get burnt and never come back. And I believe that is going to happen. And I think the cryptocurrency space hurts itself a lot. But when we speak of the Bitcoin MYK centralized finance product, here's the really cool part about it. In this kind of circular loop-like system, we also have it set up to where it's actually free. Now, I know this free stuff and this free idea of universal basic income and money is just so far beyond the scope of many of our minds that we cannot understand why, how it's possible, where's the money coming from. Well, I think it's important to understand or say it this way. Yes, it is free in a sense where it's free to the end user, but it's not free overall, right? And so what I mean by that is that there's value being created when big networks are created. And if the network gets big enough, you can use a freemium service model to, in a way, I guess the proper term would be to defer the value that needs to go into it onto another time. And so the best way I can explain this, look at something like Facebook, a freemium service model, where you basically have Facebook, the company, would pay for all the servers and they pay for all of the platform and all the development that went in there. We didn't have to pay a dime. We get to use the service free. But what happens is in being able to use the service free, we don't have to pay anything, but they use our data in a sense to where they're using this data for outside companies and products to get it. Now, here's where CFI comes in for us. We don't use your data, but what we do use is the network. We turn the network value on itself, and use the arbitrage in our own Bitcoin MYK markets across these several blockchains to create a free centralized finance tool for you, right? How is it free? Well, because in theory our cryptocurrency is free, you could get it, you could sell it on the open market, and then you could purchase the Bitcoin MYK CFI coins, right? Which we're going to explain how they work in a moment and why they're so important and why I think you all will get and fully understand it here. So you will be able to do all of this free without spending one dime, and because of that, because it's not scammy or Ponzi like a pyramid, in that the product has been paid for it. There was no ICOs done on it. There was no body who purchased the platform or the site. Those things were all paid for by Bitcoin MYK and my own money and stuff like that. So it was nobody who came in and put up all the money like many projects do, and then people did ICOs and people then go and pump up the price and all that. None of that. The product was delivered, free to use, free to get the cryptocurrency, turning the network value on its head and then extracting that network value through centralized finance arbitrage. So let's get into it. So you might have to rewind the video a couple times, come back and read it, or feel free to ask specific questions about it. We'll be able to help you and more than happy to assist you with this. But the Bitcoin or the BTC MYK CFI coin is always going to be valued or pegged to the US dollar, right? So think of it like this coin is going to always be, now this coin, because it's going to always be pegged to the US dollar, you can think of it, it can function as a stable coin for products and purchases within the Bitcoin MYK network. But although it's pegged to the US dollar, it's backed by the Bitcoin MYK token, right? So let's continue on with it so you can get it. So the Bitcoin MYK CFI coin is backed by the Bitcoin MYK token's market value, meaning the present market value, which means basically if a Bitcoin MYK CFI coin is always going to be equal to $1, that means that the Bitcoin MYK tokens is going to always be able to be redeemed for $1 worth of Bitcoin MYK CFI coin. So that's basically like saying we're always going to be able to give the value back because we're always going to have the market value. We're always going to have the coins to give you, and we're always going to be able to give you the exact amount of coins that will equal a $1 market value that the Bitcoin MYK CFI coin is pegged to, right? Now, but how do we know the value of? How do we know that it's valued at $1 in the first place? And this is where it gets to this loop, and it gets a little bit technical, where you really need to pay attention to this. But the reason that this happens is because when Facebook first went into its IPO stage and it started trading as a public company, the way that the analysis went for products like Facebook, or a lot of it was estimated on about, over the life of an account, a Facebook account might net you about $200, right? Now, they're talking about the life of it, could be through advertising or whatever value they extract from that. Now, cryptocurrency, I would go so far as to say an account is even more valuable than that. Why is that? Because, well, a cryptocurrency account is it's likely that people are going to be buying. This is a very money-driven industry, and so people are going to probably be investing in your token in one way or another. Money's going to be multiplying across cryptocurrency offers and so on and so forth. So it is quite conceivable for us to come up with that there is a pretty good analysis done that our accounts might be like $200 each. Low-level KYC accounts are well over 6,000 now, 15,000 over exchanges. So when we take an average of that, we're probably somewhere around 6,000 actual accounts we're looking at, right? That comes about $1.2 million. So what we'll do is, what happens is there will be a Bitcoin MYK CFI coin that's more like a stable coin, right? That's doing all those things we just mentioned. The first phase will be about 25,000 issued. Now, what happens when they hit the open market, right? Well, say if a person wants to create a liquidity pool, a market maker liquidity pool to give value to our or give liquidity right to the Bitcoin MYK token so people can get it in and out when they want, no problem. Well, 70% of the CeFi coin proceeds on the open market are going back to the Bitcoin MYK market, right, to provide liquidity. So all what's happening is it's when you're buying it, the money's going right back. It's like a loop. It's going right back in there. Now, only 70% of doing that. What's the 30% left doing that? None of that money goes to the platform or the company, BitcoinMYK.com, anything like that. It all goes, circulates right back through the market. 30% goes to the Bitcoin MYK CeFi coin, right? So that means that if a person is holding that coin, which is acting like a pretty stable, like a stable coin, right? Then they are able to do two things. They can redeem it for the Bitcoin MYK coins, right? That they're always going to be able to redeem them. They're always going to be able to redeem them for $1, $1 USD, whatever the market value is of Bitcoin MYK, right? So we give the example here where we said 6,000 accounts. Let's say they rise to 12,000, right? So how does the CeFi coins on the market gain value? Well, they become redeemable for 100% gain, right? So that basically means that the CeFi coins that are being purchased, they're going to be able to be purchased at depending on the value of the market, right? They're going to be able to be basically redeemable for 100% of that, meaning that if you've had X amount of CeFi coins, let's say you had one CeFi coin, right? That's $1, and then we gained 12,000 accounts. Well, those our value overall, our market value or our product value has increased 100%. That means your CeFi coins value is now redeemable 100%, and we can always provide the returns because we can provide the cryptocurrency. Correct? We have the cryptocurrency to provide. It's not promising returns that you couldn't get. Now, let's say it's only 600. We have 6,000 accounts, only 600 new ones entered. That's a 10% increase. You'll receive a 10% redeemable Bitcoin MYK. Or you can just try your luck on the open market with the CeFi coin and see if you can get it a little bit higher. Or maybe you just need to liquidate quick for some other cryptocurrency on that market, right? So how do we know what the price of the Bitcoin MYK coin is to redeem? So it's calculated on 30-day market average, and that's done because if you try to just go on what the market's reporting at, then you have to then calculate the sell value, the downward pressure value, and when you get through it all of that, if there's a big flash pump in the market or something like that, where it touches a high for about 5 minutes, it goes to a low, then that offsets the whole formula. So that's why we take an average instead over every 30 days, right? So let's say the 30-day average comes out to be 1 penny per Bitcoin MYK token. Then that means you will get 100 Bitcoin MYK tokens to equal 1 Bitcoin MYK CeFi coin that always has to be pegged to $1. You have these two options. You have option A, you can just redeem the CeFi coins for more Bitcoin MYK tokens, like an example provided. Or you can just sell it on the open market to anybody who wants to buy it. Of course, if you sell it, then that redeemable option will pass to them, right? And you can sell it that way, and then redeem it, right? And sell it on the open market for other cryptocurrencies. So, pretty interesting, pretty cool. That can be done that way. And we think it's going to really help, especially new people who want to get involved with this. And again, you can do it totally free. You can just come in, and that's what I like about it. We've always tried to make Bitcoin MYK a very legitimate freedom service cryptocurrency. We believe that due to our deflationary model, and then based on the amount of growth we expect to achieve, that the value will find its way back into the network. This future value a Friday afternoon as we go into the weekend. And I thought this was a very interesting video we're going to do today. And I thought it was very important that we really look at the value of social media, some of the social media sites we're using, your value to social media sites, just how valuable you are and how much value you give over through your attention value. And we're here on a site called Arcania, and there's an article written by Nidhi Shah, and they're going through this article about the valuation of these companies and just how valuable an account is to them. And so it was written some time ago, but I thought it was very interesting just to give you an idea of how they value these social media and just how valuable accounts are to people. When you register for these social media sites, how much value you are worth. So here, it's saying here that you are worth $182 to Google, $158 to Facebook, and $733 to Amazon. So wow. And I guess that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times you come on Amazon, you're going to spend quite a bit of money. Whereas with maybe Google, maybe Facebook, it's generally these sites are free to us to use and post, but obviously data, advertising, finding out what consumers like, ad placement, these things equal buku bucks to these platforms, right? So another thing to keep in mind, because it is dated, this is the figures are quite, I guess you could say, inaccurate at this point in time, because as you can see here, it's saying Google is worth $364 billion. I think Google might be worth, $1 trillion or more now. Now right here it's saying Facebook is worth $227 billion. But the last time I checked, Facebook was worth something like about $700 billion, right? It gained a lot of value in 2020, right? So it says it's worth $158. And when you kind of add that on there, it's probably going to end up being, I think, more close to about $400 an account or something like that. Twitter is worth $81. Again, probably inaccurate unless the value of Twitter went down. Then they got LinkedIn. They're saying they're worth $69 per account. Yahoo's each user worth $70. Amazon, here's the mega, $733. And no telling what that is now. That might be like about $2,000 now. eBay, $474. So really, to kind of get an understanding of like why are your accounts worth so much to social media and why is social media so valuable. But it's really not that difficult. It's really not that hard to understand how this works. If you kind of think about, look at something like attention value, like where you focus your attention, where you spend your time when you're on social media. You don't go very far before you see advertisements, people trying to sell you something. And these product placements, companies spend lots of money, millions of dollars. Some businesses per year spend over 50% of their revenues just on marketing and trying to get promotion, advertising in front of you. With this information, this data, that equals a lot of money. Now, because of this as well, a lot of people have started to opt for ideas like decentralized social media, private networks, social networks that don't have any advertising at all. And that's understandable. Ads can be annoying. But I think it's important to understand that when you're dealing with the value of a product, and when you're investing in a product or when you're looking to gain value from a product, that doesn't always have to be a negative thing. I think one of the biggest issues with how many social media sites do business and how they make money, because to be fair, when you're dealing with something like social media, servers cost money, and so it's going to be necessary that these businesses, these private companies, somehow are able to be able to afford, to keep these things going. That's understandable. Um, but at the same time, I think what's happened, throughout, how we've dealt with, or how they've dealt with us, whenever these social media sites, it would seem that they haven't given us the options to basically be ad free, and in the case that they haven't offered us part of the revenue, any of the tech checks from our attention value. And so that's ushered into projects that have found a way to basically, create these options for the end user and serve whatever needs they have. I think overall the article is important. It just, if nothing else, uh, helping people to understand the tremendous value that comes from their participation, right, in these networks. Um, and depending on the design of the product and or the project, this could be quite useful. I think with a project like the BitcoinMYK.com, which is a universal basic income project. Universal basic income has become a hot topic. We liken the Bitcoin MYK project to Bitcoin meets universal basic income. We believe cryptocurrencies are the best way to facilitate universal basic income. And if you don't know what universal basic income is, it's just basically the ideology that it is a right for citizens to receive enough compensation. It could be either through private networks, government channels, um, to basically take care of their basic needs, their